Hi everybody, I'm Kaylin Mercury with the Louisville Historical Museum, and this is Unit 2 of our Family History 1, 2, 3, and this is going to be on perspective and making your family history creative and interactive. So let's get started. And this is going to be our guide to the interactive side of family histories. Jumping right in, perspective, we want to talk about how it's okay for you to share your perspective. Sometimes people think that their perspective needs to be left out so that it doesn't seem biased. It's okay to include your perspective in a family history as long as you are owning the fact that it's your perspective. Museums and history organizations in general need multiple perspectives on an event or a time period to help them make sense of the best way to reflect it in programming and exhibits and in their own resources. So it's important that they have multiple perspectives, and your perspective is important as well. So it's good for you to share your perspective in this case. The next thing I want to talk about is owning your story. Not every family has a perfect family history. In fact, spoiler alert, no family has a perfect family history. We are always going to come across something, or maybe you already know about it, that we don't love about our family history. It is okay to acknowledge those things, still be historically accurate, and report those things in your family history, but it's also okay to denounce the things that you don't agree with. This is your family history, it's from your perspective, and it's okay to share your thoughts. For example, some families may have a history of slave ownership. It is historically accurate and appropriate to acknowledge that, while also sharing your thoughts about that negative part of your family history. Lastly, this whole unit is on reflecting your family's history however you want to. And this is going to be the creative side. So we can reflect it through our family foods, through drawings, through photos, through videos and recordings, and through creative writing. Sometimes people need a bit of a prompt for these creative processes. So we're going to start by talking about what heritage is. So heritage helps people with their call to action for being creative with family histories, because it allows you to draw upon traditions and culture, which often deal with actions like singing, dancing, drawing, writing. So to find and celebrate your heritage, if you don't have a strong sense of what it is already, ask these questions, and feel free to return to this slide at any time. And then what we are suggesting in order to help you, prompt you in this creative process, is to include and incorporate some of your family traditions and interests into your family history through cooking, dancing, or singing, like I just mentioned. So this unit, focusing on the creative side of family histories, is going to talk a lot about mapping your history. Now, this doesn't mean actual cartography. Rather, we're going to do mapping in a different way. Mapping as you see it, and mapping from different perspectives. And those perspectives are food, drawings of your family, your home, or your neighborhood, mapping through photos, so a photo collage of your family or a photo family tree, videos through family skits or family interview videos. And for that and the recordings, we would suggest that you use our family interview worksheet from Unit 1, which is linked. There's also a way to map your family history through storytelling and writing, and we're going to go through how to prompt that process. Jumping right in, we're going to start talking about food, my favorite. Family recipes tell a story. All family recipes have a who, a where, and a why. They are often connected to special places and people and memories. And you may not know all of this information, but hopefully someone in your family does. And so if you have not already completed the research part from Unit 1, I would suggest that you ask around to your relatives and see if anyone has the backstory to why your family eats the foods you eat. There's got to be a story behind how those recipes evolved, And if your family members are from a different area and not originally from Louisville, Colorado, which it's very likely they are not, then there's a way that you can track down how that recipe followed your family through their path to Colorado. And so we're going to talk about these two strategies for preserving your family recipes that tell a story. And we're going to talk about annotating a recipe and mapping your recipes. Under annotating recipes, you will write the actual recipe where it says on the left picture under directions, you will write the actual instructions and ingredients for the recipe. And then the right photo is just that same page flipped. And so you can see, you would fold it in half if you had it printed out. But I've got it flipped on the right side of the page and it says recipe story. A heritage recipe isn't complete without a story. Share what makes this recipe special to your family. And so this is where you can annotate and fill in those gaps about your family history for yourself and for future generations. I have linked this worksheet, which is free to print and download, in the description of this video. So if you are interested in annotating your recipes, make sure to check that out. Mapping your recipes includes identifying specific foods that your family eats and trying to find out where they come from around the globe. It's a neat way to try and figure out what influences your family was under in certain areas. Did your family come from Europe and move to the Midwest and mix their traditional foods with Midwestern foods? It's very possible that they have added their own flair to a traditional recipe based on where they were living at the time. So this worksheet, Map Your Recipes, is also linked in the description, and it instructs you to write what you've learned about the recipes and then draw, like in our example on the left, you would draw your line to where you think it comes from culturally. It's a good way to tangibly explore your family history. The next way we're going to talk about exploring your family history is through maps and drawings. These are important as documentation of an area or of a family. We may not think of drawings and doodles as important historical sources, but they definitely share parts of the story that may be unspoken. Maps and drawings require additional documentation through labels and or color schemes. So if you're drawing something, it might be evident to you and your immediate family what it is, but make sure that you label it either on the back or somewhere additional, that you label where it is and when you are depicting it. For this section, you will use what you have: papers, pencils, markers, construction paper. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be representative. Explore sounds or smells. Some people ask, how can you draw a sound? Or how can you draw a smell? Well, I'm going to show you an example on the next slide where someone has mapped the sounds through their neighborhood. And there's an answer key at the bottom that helps you figure out what each symbol or drawing is sound-wise. And it's a really neat way to capture how active and vibrant an area is. These maps and drawings should depict routines, routes, interactions, and or memories. If you are planning to draw your house, for example, you might want to draw it room by room. And don't just think about the physical items in that room, but think about the activities that go on. It's okay to label your drawings. This is where I do my homework. This is where I cook. This is where I sleep. Make it action-based drawing. And if you don't like to draw figures, you don't have to draw yourself in the space. Same thing if you're drawing a route. Show what that route is to and what is along it. If you're drawing your neighborhood, where do people live? Where do they go play? Where do they hang out when they want quiet? Where do people exercise? Where do people go to eat? These are all action-based things that are so important for context down the road, to know what a place has been and how it has changed. So these are some examples that I've pulled together for you. This is one animated drawing, Los Angeles. And this is kind of an extreme example, but I wanted to show you what some other people are doing with this idea. So they have mapped their quote unquote neighborhood, which I would never consider all of LA to be a neighborhood, but they have pictured the most important things to them in the way that they feel, with a symbol that they feel represents them. So for example, some of the favorite restaurants of this person have been symbolized with the type of food. So here's a steak, here's a sub sandwich, and they've labeled underneath it what it is. And it's just a neat way to share your perspective of your area, your town, your neighborhood, while also using it as an accurate, to an extent, historical source. Here's another example in the top middle of someone mapping their neighborhood. And this explains our house, our trampoline. So this is where they live and where they play. This is their favorite deli. So this person has detailed their neighborhood. Here's the dog park. And these things are probably not this close together in reality, but this is that person's reality of their neighborhood. The most important things they do, the things that bring them joy. The bottom middle picture shows someone depicting their day-to-day interactions. And so this is more about people and where they're going and who they're seeing than it is about places. So you've got the park and an interaction with a dog. You've got riding a bike and passing passerbys. You've got an ice cream truck and potentially a school or a house here. And so it's showing you within their space, their area, who they would be interacting with on a day-to-day basis. Now on the right, this is the map I was talking about on the previous screen that shows a map of sounds in this person's neighborhood. And they have shown with different symbols, different kinds of sounds. And so there are bird sounds, there are wind sounds, there are laughter sounds, all depicted in this map of sorts. And I just wanted to include this to show you that you can be as creative and out there as you want to be. But I just love this depiction because it looks so different and incomprehensible without the key down here at the bottom. And so they have made sure to use their creativity, which is what you guys all should feel the freedom to do, but they have also left a key for those in the future to be able to decode it. Moving right along, we are now talking about photos, videos, and recordings. Now, I've lumped these all together because they all depend on the technology that you have. So I wouldn't run out and buy a specific recorder or video camera if you're planning on doing a family history. I would suggest that you use the equipment that you have and look at strategies for that equipment. It's important with photos, videos, and recordings that you leave labels, transcripts, and scene write-ups that share the who, what, when, and where of that photo, video, or recording. So this next slide is some examples. Here at the left, we have a photo collage. And these have been made into photo family trees, which are just a really fun visual thing and also a great keepsake. Here is actually a branch of some kind or a vine that they have made their own tree from creative things they could find around their house, which I love. On the bottom here, where it says scenes from the lives of our ancestors, this is an example I'm including for the video portion of this section. This family has taken their family tree or their family lineup like they have here on the left, and they've created scenes that they're going to record or have recorded for those family members' lives. This is a really great way to include a lot of people in your family history if you have this going on as a family project. So what they have done is they have written scripts for each of these really short scenes. And so these might be some bigger moments in this family's history that they want to capture for future generations and for themselves. And so what you would do is you would write a script for each short scene. I have included a script writing worksheet in the description of this video if this is a project that you would like to take on. This could be a really great way to envision what your family lived like. What was their house like? What did they eat? So recording video scenes of your family's and ancestors' lives is a really neat project. Up here at the top right is our audio recording. So they have an actual recording device on the table. You can use a smartphone or a computer to record. The important thing with recording a family history in this way is that you make sure that you note who is talking, and this can be done through a simple label. If you want to be more specific, follow more of the museum's guidelines, you could write a transcript for the interview, and there are guidelines for writing transcripts in the description of this video. And so these are 3 ways to capture your family history through technology that can be made more interactive depending on what you want out of them. The last section of this video is writing and storytelling. Now, writing is not everyone's forte, but if you are a person who really enjoys storytelling and creative writing, then this is the section for you. Our advice for writing stories about your family history is to write your stories from a clear perspective. Are you writing the story about your grandmother from your perspective or from her perspective? Just let your reader know. Use prompts. In the description of this video, we have linked several family history writing prompts that can help you get started and know what questions to ask yourself. The next bullet point goes right along with asking yourself these questions. Scope of storytelling. How do you want your stories to be as a finished product? Do you want them to capture every detail? Or do you want them to be story focused and focus on the arc of the story and the highlights of that person's story rather than what color they were wearing or what they ate for lunch that day? So it's important to know what kind of storytelling you are looking to do. As I mentioned, all of the resources that I've talked about in this video are linked in the description of this video, as well as timestamps that if you want to revisit a section of this video, you can click on the time and it will take you to that part of the video.